Hey, you guys, welcome to another episode. Well, this is actually part two. This is just a little mini series, right? Part two of memories of the early LA punk scene with my friend Jim, who actually grew up. He grew up in the LA punk scene, of the late '70s and early '80s, and met Rodney Bingenheimer and all this other stuff that he did, and we already covered that in part one. Part one was a lot of fun for me. It was 2 weeks ago. You could probably find it on my Facebook timeline or on YouTube, right? And I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing this once a week. If I can, if I could do it, it'll be on Fridays, 2 p.m. You know, Pacific, and I'll be interviewing just friends or acquaintances and people I know I've met online and stuff like that, and how music of the 20th century, when we were kids, and how it shaped your brain and what it was like to hear all these bands for the first time, or if you were just like me, a lot of the time just a loner and just listening to albums like they were medicine, you know. And I had a few friends and stuff, and I was in a couple bands and stuff like that, but it was mostly being on my own with music. So it's really strange in that aspect. So I'm going to be doing that every Friday, interviewing friends, and it's called Music Memories of the 20th Century. So I hope you enjoy it. I figure we have all this technology, why not do something with it? Why not, just try to have some fun with it and document people and their perspectives on music. You know what? We already got my friend. Uh, Thank you, Rod, for being here. Dr. Silverage, a great friend of mine. Another example of someone I met online. The people I'm meeting online are becoming real friends. And it's a slow process for me getting to know people, but uh, yeah, I'm very happy, and I'm very happy to be interviewing Jim. What
Hey,
up, Jim?
hey, everybody.
How are you today, man?
A little better, you know. I had to cancel our trip down to Huntington Beach to so I could do some longboarding because I'm not 100,000% like I'd like to be.
Yeah,
So, but that's cool. Gives me a chance to just rest and relax, which I think with this vacation I took, I actually need that.
yeah. Sometimes your body does that, huh? It just decides to get sick at the inopportune moment, but um, it's seemingly inopportune moment, but then you end up reflecting or relaxing or reading and doing things that you needed to do. I mean, everyone needs that downtime,
Yeah.
and so okay, so we're going to get into this. Just as a recap, this all kind of started. You always were rebellious, but it started when you were just walking down a street as a 12-year-old, and someone handed you a flyer, and it was for a band, and it happened to be the Sex Pistols, and you decided to go.
Yeah.
And
Back
ever
in
since you went to
29.
that show, your whole attitude changed on music, right?
Yeah, I went down the full gamut. I mean, punk was the first thing, but there was the new wave stuff, which they would call post punk or alternative.
Yeah,
Alternative didn't come till the '90s. That's what
yeah.
they.
That's what I'm used to. That
Yeah, but it was actually called post punk. After the hardcore scene, then you had post punk. That's when you had the bands like the Salvation Army and the Red Cross, and you started getting into the British stuff that was being done because
yeah,
Rodney was always playing it, you
yeah.
know.
Yes, right, Rod, right, Bingenheim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but you
So
could only hear that late at night on his, on K Rock, you
yeah,
know, what I mean? Or go to the shows, and that was actually cool. Like I think one of the coolest bands that came out at that time was Wall of Voodoo. And I don't say that because of,
On
uh,
the Mexican
yeah,
radio.
not because of that. If you listen to their version of Ring of Fire,
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, yeah.
oh yeah, the stuff they do with the guitars and synthesizers back then. I
But
mean,
it's quite an accomplishment. Those recordings, back
yeah,
in the day, you put on a set of headphones and you listen to,
yeah,
Mexican radio, and I
yeah,
could listen to that probably once a day for the rest of my life and just love
yeah.
it. You know?
And it's really funny too because like I didn't have the money to go out and buy all these albums and cassettes and stuff, but
Yeah,
I could buy blank cassettes. And when I was dating Kelly, she had her best friend whose older brother was in the scene, and he bought all the vinyl.
yeah.
He's and hey,
What up,
good to see you.
Tad?
And he would be like, dude, just anytime you want, come over, hang out in the bedroom. Everything's set up. You can just, copy all my albums. And I amassed a huge collection by just buying BAS tapes, which were still the most quality, but also affordable.
Right.
And just recording all of his albums, and
Yeah.
he had, like, I never heard of the Stiff Little Fingers till I met him,
Yeah.
you
I,
know.
I didn't listen to them till like the late '90s or early 2000.
Yeah, I was like 16.
Suspect Device and all that.
Yeah.
Cool, dude.
Tat nap. And, he had the Wall of Voodoo. And then my cousins got into Elvis Costello, and I really liked Elvis Costello's early stuff, like What's
Yeah.
Wrong with Peace, Love, and Understanding,
Yeah.
and Radio.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another great one.
Yeah. And all the faster, upbeat stuff that mixed rock and roll with the keyboards, which they were still using the Hammond organ synthesizer type thing,
Yeah.
but it was new and different, and it was cool.
Yeah, like Pump It Up, right?
Yeah, pump it up. Where, like the punk scene was a great initiation for me.
Yeah.
Because at that time, as a tween and getting into my teens, yeah, you got a lot of hormones. You're not happy with your situation. You're controlled by your parents. And a lot of that stuff that was going on, I mean, that was Reagan's first term in office, the whole thing with that. Iran-Contra and Afghanistan, and
Yeah.
people were still pissed about the Vietnam War. So all that
And
crap was
nihilism was more appealing back then, right?
yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
But then you discover there's a lot more to life than that stuff.
But at that time, you were going to a lot of Circle Jerks shows, and these guys weren't even signed yet, right?
Yeah.
Black Flag and
Yeah, a lot of the bands weren't signed yet. They were barely scrape enough money to make an EP or a demo tape and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
What was it like seeing them with that? You were so young, and what did you look like, and all that shit?
At first, I just shaved my head, so people would have thought I was a skin. But if you guys noticed, most of the people didn't do the crazy hair stuff because it cost money to dye your hair.
Yeah, and to keep that going, right?
Yeah, it cost money to have the crap to do your spikes and to get a leather and to have your docks,
Yeah.
So most people just wore jeans and t-shirts and had shaved heads, and it was, I don't know.
But you had Liberty spikes at one time.
No, I had a mohawk. I didn't have the Liberty spikes.
Oh, okay, it was a mohawk. Okay.
Yeah, and what I did when my hair started growing out again and it was long enough where I was just combing it back, I told a friend of mine, Eddie, dude, just shave my head and leave a mohawk. And I tried dyeing. I dyed it blue. I dyed it green. I dyed it red. But I got sick of that crap after a while.
Yeah.
And I just let it be natural. And then I just shaved it off again when I met Kelly, and we ended up being together. And
yeah.
And like I said, I really enjoyed she turned me on to all the ska stuff, the two-tone
Now,
stuff.
before you met Kelly, though, did you run away with another woman before that?
Oh yeah,
Before or after? And you
that
were
was
already in the
before.
music scene. It was before, and you were
Yeah,
already going to shows as a
yeah,
teeny popper or something, right? You were
yeah.
like,
I was the only kid in my neighborhood that knew punk, knew about this stuff,
yeah,
and they were still listening to AC/DC and Rush, and
yeah,
um, I turned them on to a lot of that stuff, and they're like, "Whoa!" You
yeah.
know,
And you were like 14, 15 going to these shows and stuff. And they let you in the shows back then too, right?
yeah. And then when death metal started and speed metal started coming out in the mid
80.
to late 80s, they
Yeah.
kind of gravitated to that,
Yeah.
and I still stayed in the post punk scene.
Right.
But I'll never forget this. There was, like, I lived on Hobart, right off of Melrose. We were 2 blocks down from Melrose on Hobart,
Yeah.
and over on Western, right before Melrose, there was this theater. We could go see 2 or 3 movies for $1. And it's
Wow.
easy for us to come together and each have $1 each to go to the movie,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and just sneak in crap. So I'll never forget. We saw this movie, one of the movies. It was Escape from New York,
Nice.
class of 1984, and I think The Thing.
Oh,
And
cool.
John Carpenter's The Thing. And this punk chick, she was in front of us.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I hear you, Leah. It's a lot easier now to do that though than it was back then, because it wasn't multiplexes. It was just one theater, and they would show, you pay your money and you get to see 2 or 3 films. That's how it worked,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but she made a comment, and we just started talking. I didn't know how old she was,
Now this
and
is before you met your girlfriend, right?
yeah, this was way
And you were
before.
15 or something like that, 16.
Yeah, I was like 15 going on 16. Hey,
What
Legion.
up, Mark?
And we just started talking and hanging out, and um, we did everything but take my V card, which I was okay with, because I honestly didn't lose my V card till I was an adult. But we did everything but.
So
And
okay, so you were hanging out at the movie theater, and suddenly you met this woman. You didn't really know how old she was, right? Am I right?
yeah, I didn't even know how old she was yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, she's like, "Hey, you want to come back to my place and drink?" I'm like, "You got your own place?"
You're like 16 or something, right?
Yep,
Hey,
exactly.
Jimmy.
Hey, ho, let's go.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was. No, I was, but I went down the dark path, and then I wasn't that pure anymore.
So you were 14, 15, 16. You were going to punk shows yourself, but you were slowly getting some friends into it, and they couldn't believe how awesome it was, and it was right next door or whatever.
Yeah, and they tripped out that I just ran off with this chick for 3 weeks, almost a month. But we went to a lot of gigs. We crashed at her place. Um, One of the worst experiences, though, was on a Halloween night. We were going to go to this Halloween gig at the Odyssey because it was one of the few clubs that I could get into.
Yeah.
And we're walking, because we're walking there down Melrose, and I knew it was trouble. We see a white truck coming, Ford pickup, full of people yelling at us. They had people in the back, because back then in the 80s, you could still have people in the pickup part of your pickup. Now it's illegal.
Now you can't do that, right?
Yeah, and they were shouting at us, calling us freaks and weirdos and all that. Well, she's 25. She's a full-blown adult. And he's talking shit, flipping them off, all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think you should do that. There's way more of them than there are us. And she says, stop being a, you know. And well, sure enough, they turned around and they were coming after us, and they pulled over. We were about a block away from where all this happened, going down Melrose Avenue. We were kind of close to the Golden Apple where it used to be on Melrose, because we had to get to La Cienega and go down to get to the club, the Odyssey, because it was on Beverly and La Cienega.
Right.
And they came out, they had sticks, they had wood. Dude, I never got beat like that before. And I was trying to be over her because I'm thinking she's a chick. And no, she just threw me off, and she's trying to fight them off. And one dude just standing over me with not a 2x4. I don't know what it is. He says, if you know what's good for you, you'll stay out of this. She's the one talking shit. We don't want you. Okay.
Wow, that was nice enough for the wow.
Yeah, and dude, they were just, I mean, they were going at her, and luckily someone came out of some of the stores and stopped it, called the cops, and they took off. Dude, even after all that, bloody and bruised, she still wanted to go to the club.
Wow.
I'm like, damn, now that's hardcore.
Yeah.
And that was freaky because
how long have you known her at that point when you guys?
Like 2-3 weeks.
So at that was no, I mean, when that happened, did you just meet her or something? Or
it was it was like 2 weeks into it. Yeah,
wow.
but that was okay back then, because the punks, these are the kind of guys that would go gay bashing too. So they'll go after the punks, they go after the gays, anyone who doesn't fit in with their thing.
Yeah, that portrayal in the 80s, 70s, and 80s in movies and stuff, that was actually real.
It was very real. And that's why if you see SLC Punk, it shows you the what do they call it? The line of who beats up who.
Jeez.
And
so you couldn't believe at first, like when you're just going to movie theater, you were this teenager, this girl's like, hey, you want to go drinking? It's almost like child abuse, but you were out there on the streets just having fun with your friends, and you decide just to go with it, right? And you were like having the time of your life, but your friends didn't know where the heck you were, and that was for like 3 weeks, and that was just the attitude back then, right?
Yeah, it was, and my
now,
mom
was it, at first it was a lot of fun, but then she ended up being just crazy, right?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty crazy. That was the big red flag there. I mean, you don't talk shit to these people, you ignore them because they're looking for someone. They were probably drinking, looking, let's talk shit and find somebody who mouths off so we can beat them up. They didn't care who it would be. And it was freaky when we got to the club. We got in. Elvira was there that night because this is the 80s. Elvira was big, right?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I wanted to see me some Elvira because Cassandra Peterson was fine,
Yeah, totally.
She wasn't all that fine out of costume, but man, because I always had that thing for the goth look,
goth
girl look. Susie Sue was hot, and the chick from X was hot, Exene Cervanka and all that.
Yeah.
Nina Hagen, they were all little hotties.
Yeah.
So got to talk to her, and she was really cool. But man, some of the freakiest people came out. You saw people dressed in actual authentic Nazi SS uniforms.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible, right?
Yeah, dude, and you're just looking around like, what the hell? And this is like West Hollywood, dude. You would think they wouldn't let that go because it's the Fairfax district. It's a highly Jewish community in LA,
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa.
But it was that nihilism, right? That nihilistic like attitude, right?
Yeah, anything to offend and just push it. Yeah, and be in your face,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that was the night that I decided I didn't need to be around this chick anymore. And I walked home from there, and I got reamed by my parents. And she took off with some dude who looked like Adamant, but it wasn't Adamant. It was a lookalike. And you guys remember that's when Adamant did his new Goody Two Shoes album, so he was all the hit again after
Yeah.
he flopped with Adam and the Ants.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife is awake. She says hi, everybody.
Hi, Mrs. Sandman.
Oh, and no, my wife knows nothing of the punk scene. She hates the punk scene. She does like some of the ska music that I listen to.
I'm a goody two shoe.
Yeah, she's a goody two shoe. You heard that. She's a square.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about hey, what's up, Red Batman? Kyle, what's going on, dude?
All right, let me get some more coffee and we'll talk about it because I am empty.
Okay, all right.
And that's the only thing keeping me going right now.
Well, Jim's on a coffee break here, and we're talking with him. He grew up in the LA scene of the late 70s and early 80s. You guys could check that out on my timeline and Facebook or on YouTube. And pretty much was hanging out with Rodney Bingenheimer and had like all these bands just in like houses partying at one point too. Whoop.
Yeah. Well,
nice shot there.
I can explain how that happens.
Okay.
Well, let's go back to just the music scene itself. At first, it was kind of innocent, and it was just a release of energy. It was incredible for you as a teenager. Yeah. But then later, sects, right, started to appear, right? Gangs started appearing, got darker. Yeah. But that's much later from where we're at right now, right?
I think so, yeah. I think within 2 or 3 years of that happening, it was going that way. It really was.
Well, the Nazis and all that reminded me.
Yeah, because you had the skinheads, you had oi boys, you had Nazi punks, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, and you had it, you just had a lot of it attracted the wrong crowd. A lot of people think that the LA punk scene became a government psyop, and that's what made it change. Because if you know about how certain sound waves can control body functions, emotions, and all that kind of shit.
Right.
Yes. I know I got to put on my TID hat for this.
Well, it's extremely low frequencies or whatever.
Yeah. And they think that they did something about it, you know, because the scene didn't start off that way. It didn't attract those kind of people. Yeah, Suicidal Tendencies became a gang. And they teamed up with another gang from Venice Beach called the Venice White Boys. And you had Temple Street, you had 18th Street, and some of the guys from all these different gangs, Stoner's Thresse, started getting in the punk scene. And fights would break out. I mean, that's where all the riots and stuff came from. And also, a lot, not all, but a lot of musicians, they have some kind of addiction, either drugs or alcohol, women, whatever.
And you kind of fell into the drug scene, you know.
Yeah, you do, because you're young and, you know, all the cool kids are doing it and you want to fit in.
Right.
And that's how I met a bunch of bands and hung out with people, because you want to get drunk, or you want to get stoned, or you know, you want to feel different. And all they wanted was yep. And I mean, look at those guys. They even dressed as gangbangers, you know?
Yeah.
The Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember the bandana. I remember their later album that, you know, joined the army and all that stuff. You know?
But how it was, and this goes even today, whoever had the drugs, everybody would just be around them, or everybody would pitch in money for drugs, whatever they had, so they'd all get a little bit. and you don't care who you are. You don't care what band they are in. You don't even know until you start talking to them that they're in a band.
Yeah.
You're all just doing around, tooting
It's
a
not
line,
like,
smoking a
I mean,
joint.
these guys are famous now, but at the time they weren't signed or anything. It was just like
Yeah,
they were creating a scene or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
you know.
exactly. And I'm just glad I got out of it, and
Well,
uh, out of that. And I mean, I still like Kelly was the one who led me towards the ska music and ska punk. Um, some of the, and I still listen to a lot of that now too, like the psychobilly and ska punk and stuff like that. Now, like one band that my wife actually likes is a band called the Interrupters, which is kind of a ska punk band. They're on the same label as Rancid, but they're really good and they're
yeah.
upbeat. They're happy.
I
It's
like their messages.
yeah,
But
it's
this
fun.
is when you met Kelly, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Before
then
that, it was that other chick, and yeah, that experience of getting your ass beat down,
that was the
and
first. Yeah, that was the first time. Like, yeah,
yeah, and then the gigs, like the Black Flag riot, and what happened to me at the Anti Club.
yeah.
Um, those were, I mean, hey,
What was
Three
that? Red.
Strikes,
What was the band's name? Red.
Red
Scream.
Cross, no, not Red Cross, Red Scare, Red
Red
Scare.
Scare. Red Scare. Yeah. You were actually auditioning for Red Scare, doing a live gig, and then that at that time is what you're talking about. The punk scene got super dark, and they were just like crazy,
Yeah,
and they were
and a
throwing
lot of
things.
people think it became a psyop is what happened. It was a way for the government to control it and break it down. I don't know if any of that's true. I know I saw the change. Henry Rollins saw the change in
Yeah,
the punk community, and he verifies that in all of his interviews and stuff. There was just a change.
yeah.
And that's what got me into like the ska punk and not like the Stray Cats rockabilly, more the psychobilly rockabilly because it
Because
was
there's a swing and there's a
well, it was a lot quicker too.
yeah,
Like if anybody ever heard of Tiger Army or the Horror Pops,
yeah,
um, or the Necromantics, um, they're fun bands. They take 1950s B movies, play them in the background, and play their music and write songs about them.
yeah.
Just fun, cool
Like the
stuff.
Misfits, but they weren't like the Misfits. I'm not saying they were, but kind of like that whole aesthetic, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Yeah,
LAPD, yeah.
yeah,
It's funny. A lot of the earlier maybe documentaries um, would glamorize these scenes. A lot of them still do, but the truth of them, some of it was good. It wasn't all bad. You had the
yeah,
straight laced, groups and stuff, but
yeah.
a
You
lot of
had
it was a
you had
nightmare.
your straight edge punks, you had your peace punks, yeah. And it's funny you mention Exene because she was really quiet and shy and cool. But the guy really got along with from her band was the guitarist Billy Zoom. He rode a scooter, had his pompadour, so he was totally rockabilly, but man, he could play that guitar and he really knew what he was doing. That's why they had such a distinctive, awesome sound.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. They're
And
incredible dual voices to like just that work together.
yeah, and he showed me that you don't have to like just be this. You don't have to be just a punk. You can like everything that's new and take what you want from it and be what you want and like.
And be free.
Yeah, and just
you know?
Billy
Instead of
Zoom
like,
was great, dude. He was the bomb, and I wanted his Lambretta so bad. I kept trying to tell him, I'll trade you my 67 super special Vespa for it. He's like, no, man, my Lambretta is worth more than that.
that's funny.
Because he had it all tricked out. I mean, I had mine tricked out too. It had chrome cowls in the front, and I had lights. Okay, but what are you going shopping for? We don't really need anything. Okay, fine. Just don't spend a lot, okay? All right. Sorry.
I'm gonna have the babies out.
And it was, yeah.
So, but Kelly got you helped. Well, you were
Yes.
still,
Yes.
still
Matt, that is absolutely true. We were all chasing the dragon, brother. We were. And I became a functioning addict until I met, I met Rachel, honestly. I've been,
your wife now. Yeah.
yeah, I've been clean and sober with her 23 years now.
That's great, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you recall all of these, it's such a long time ago. It's like another person. But
Yeah.
your ex girlfriend Kelly got you more into like X, right? Is that correct?
And ska
And
and all
ska.
that stuff, just better bands that weren't all, and in your face, kind of like causing the violence.
What
And
up, Jeff?
and it was weird. That was always a battle for me, the chasing the dragon. Like my first wife, I was off of it too, but then she took everything from me when she didn't want to be with me anymore and threw me to the streets. And then when you're crashing at the punk pads again
Who got rid of you?
my first wife.
Okay.
Yeah, we were married 4 years.
That's
And,
not Kelly.
huh?
That was not Kelly.
No.
Okay.
I'll just say her first name was Liz. And I mean, we were doing really good, but she was messing around with a house painter from Pico Rivera, whose name I will not say.
Yeah.
And because I was an ex-junkie and the war on drugs, zero tolerance, she had a good lawyer, cleaned out our bank accounts, and used it to hire a lawyer to get our condo. We were buying a house in Pasadena.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I actually enjoy life more now than I ever did. I don't know why I did that. And you know what's funny? It was easy for me to go through the withdrawals and get clean. And that was the only way I could do it, was to actually suffer the horror of the withdrawals.
Yeah.
Get clean.
Wow.
And I don't crave it. I mean, I'm still an addict. I know that.
So
I mean,
you did that with your first wife?
Yeah. And I did it when I met Rachel. She said, we're having a kid. If you want to be a dad and be a man, then you need to be clean and sober. So I did it. The 2 weeks were over. It was awesome. I didn't have to get methadone or any of that, or no, it's just you go through hell and then you're okay. But these cigarettes, I can't. 3 days is the most.
So let's rewind a bit. I think you were still with Kelly and in the Rodney Bingenheim scene, and there was a house party in which bands would circulate and practice within her, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
and
Jane's Addiction, and Fishbone.
Yeah.
How was that? What did you get to go in?
Yeah, I went in, and and I didn't know who they were. I didn't know who they were at the time. I can tell you now, though, that I know who all of them are. Andy was a ladies' man. He had an addiction problem, too. So did Perry Farrell. And Perry Farrell was just out there. He's always been, woo, Dave Navarro was pretty cool. But
were you listening to their music for the first time as they were jamming out? And so you were listening to Jane's Addiction before you knew who they were.
Yeah.
That's pretty big to me, at least, because Jane's Addiction was big to me, like in my mind in the 90s.
Yeah, and I really dug Fishbone, though. Fishbone
was the best.
Yeah, fun and happy.
Red Hot Chili Peppers was good too. So you didn't even know these guys, but you were just showing up.
And I was like, I was thinking in my head, what is this fucking guy doing playing the 70s funk shit? Yeah. And I'm like, what?
You didn't like it that much, huh?
No, I was thinking, they'll never make it.
Well, how many albums did they have before they really made it huge, I mean,
I don't know.
Really interesting.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't.
So
But
how did you get in there from Rodney? Was Rodney
yeah,
let you
because
in?
Rodney went. He's like, hey, we're going to see a few bands here. And he just talked to them. He never partook, never partook. You know, he would have a drink occasionally, but as far as drugs, he didn't. I never saw Rodney do any drug. I never saw that.
Wow.
I mean, there's rumors he was smoking pot with the Monkees back in the day, you
Oh,
know.
he was a different guy back then, wasn't he?
Yeah, but they smoked pot, and he was so much younger then too, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um,
And what was he like? I mean, I watched the documentary, but did that documentary really adequately portray him in your mind?
he's kind of a weird, nerdy guy, like you see there. He's kind of awkward. He loves the women; they don't love him back, you
Well,
know.
by the time that you were there, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um,
mean, so yeah, and he had an incredible record collection. He knew his music, and so many bands became famous because of him.
well, and so much of that music that he introduced people to has influenced us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing. Like you hear about these personalities later in life. I don't know. There's some people did love Rodney right when it was happening, and they're really hip and cool, but I didn't.
Well, I loved Rodney because without Rodney, I would never see all these bands. I never would have met all these people.
Yeah,
I didn't know their names. I didn't know the names till after the fact.
you were just this punker who never
Yeah,
thought that punk would become popular like it is now. Like even before Rodney, you saw the Sex Pistols, and then you were watching Circle Jerks and Black Flag and a whole bunch of other stuff. And even like later in X, all these bands are legendary now, but
yeah.
you didn't even think that they would become legendary, right?
No, I didn't. I just thought it was a scene, and you don't think about that.
Yeah.
You're going to the. Oh, come on, kitty! Stop chewing on my cable from the phone.
Cats are so chaotic, I
Yeah,
love it.
well, it's one of the little ones.
Oh, no one.
Okay, but yeah, it's just weird. When you're there, you're in the moment. You know what I mean? You're just
Yeah.
living in the moment, and you don't think about anything but then and there.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, to me, what the original punk scene was really about. It was just being in the moment, enjoying something new and different and experimental when it started out. And like I said, it became something completely and totally different by the time I said, fuck this shit, I'm out. Excuse my language. Please forgive me, Jesus.
Well, it's the Red Scare was the you were
Yeah,
actually auditioning as a bass player that you didn't really know what you were doing, but
no.
you loved the music so much, just that whole scene, genre of music so much, you wanted to be a part of it, and you actually auditioned and did one show with Red Scare, and
Yeah, they didn't even want me, but they said
they
I had the
rioted.
look, and Rodney kind of said, just, you know what, take him. It's okay. It'll be fine. You
In
guys.
that
Oh,
very show, it rioted, right, for no apparent
yeah,
reason.
at the Anti Club. And if you guys remember from the last show, there was someone in our chat who was actually there and remembered that and knew a lot of the stuff I was talking about that went on in the LA scene, like
Yeah.
the gangs and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we're kind of covering treading the same ground as last interview, but I just wanted to recap a lot of it before we're only into this for 40 minutes, but I don't know how long you want to do this for. But I wanted to make sure that also you have Dave Mustaine from Megadeth experiences as well, and you were actually roommating with them. So
Yeah.
everyone check that out if you haven't.
Yeah, nicest guy on the planet, one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. And I don't care what anybody says about him. Don't ever talk trash to me about Dave Mustaine. I love that man to death. He saved my life. I'm not going to tell that story again.
Yeah.
Watch Aaron's video.
Yeah, that was a good story. Yeah.
And I am forever in his debt. That was providence. That was the Lord. Whatever you want to say, it was no. He saved me, man, and I love the dude. I love the dude. No, I'm talking about Dave saving me from being raped, honey.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Yeah. So it was. Anyway. That's when I started exploring the other stuff like Red Cross, Salvation Army, 3 o'clock, because psychedelic acid rock stuff was coming back in a big
Whole surfers and stuff.
yeah. And that's where like we get the 3 o'clock from, like Cantaloupe Girlfriend and Jet Fighter Man, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Exactly, Matt. Punk was always about the DIY. Yeah. And it became something totally different. And let's see, who else did I really dig? Because they made fun of themselves being in the scene. Dead Milkman,
Yeah. Yeah.
And Flaming Lips. I loved Flaming Lips because people thought, oh, they're so new. It's like, dude, they're just doing experimental stuff. They're taking what Dream Academy and Joy Division did, and they're taking it steps further,
Yeah.
And now I wasn't a big fan of the Stray Cats back in the day, but even though I realized Brian Seltzer is a fantastic musician, but I did like other faster rockabilly, psychobilly. Like I mentioned Tiger Army, they were from Santa Cruz, and they got super big and popular in the 90s. And they still do a Halloween show every year. And then the Horror Pops, I saw them at a Hootenanny. The Horror Pops were great. They're from Copenhagen. And her husband, because the lead singer of the Horror Pops also plays the bass. Her husband started his own band called the Necromantics, which is really great stuff. And then local ska bands, I love that mixed punk and ska. And I'm not talking No Doubt. I'm not talking that pussy pop 40 shit. I'm talking stuff like the Pharmaceutical Bandits, And oh my God, Sublime, when he first started, Bradley, I mean, he mixed everything together. He put Rastafarianism, he put punk, he put ska, he put gospel stuff all into his tunes, and he kept it real and talked about what life really was like in the hood, which is
amazing.
Yeah, which is what punk started out to be, but changed. And he was trying to bring it back, but he is a man who got defeated by the dragon, and God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Because like people loved him. He had the voice of an angel. He could sing and do anything, like the chick from Pharmaceutical Bandits had a big crush on him.
Right.
And it was like, that's what that song, oh God, what was that song that he sang with them about quitting the dope? And he kept trying, man, and he couldn't. He just couldn't. He couldn't. And it was horrible. But I actually saw them in the early 90s when I was dating this chick, Celia. We were hanging out at Fairmont Park in Riverside, and just a bunch of bands came up there and started playing because they have like a concrete stage. And one of them was Sublime. And this is before the album came out, the big album, before he died.
Right.
And we got to talk to him, and dude, he was the most chillest person, Violent Femmes. Yeah, I always considered Violent Femmes to be acoustic punk,
Yeah.
Just 3 guys, one with a regular guitar up there.
That must have been fun, So did you meet a lot of these bands?
Yeah. You just talk to them, that before they get big, they're cool,
Right. Yeah.
But when you get big, then they get security guards, they get managers, all this weird stuff happens, and they don't get to interact with the people that they make the music for anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's that's why it was so cool to see all these bands before they cut albums. I know. Yeah, exactly, Kilted. They were very paranoid of all that. Yeah. Yeah, well, especially that hair on, Matt. That hair on, you don't do it, it does you, you know? And, oh, and I know what that was like. Because Rodney was very selective. And I said this in the first interview. Bingenheimer only let me around because I was dating a pretty blonde girl at the time, you know, and he always had a thing for pretty blondes. If you watch the documentary, he'll always have a different girl on his arm. They'll always be blonde. And if they're brunette, they have a certain style to them too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it seems like you've gone through most of your life.
Yeah.
Is there anything like you would like to summarize? Like you went through so many different phases. You started off as a 12-year-old with that flyer. I'll never forget this story. Someone handing you the flyer when you're 12 years old, and it was for the Sex Pistols. And then you went, and then you got changed by that, and you became a punker.
Yeah.
And,
well, because back then people would just hand out flyers for gigs anywhere, and you got paid per flyer that you handed out. You know.
Yeah. Is that how you start handing out flyers?
No.
No, it was just someone doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so, but let's do that. You know, I don't know. Did we cover that really when you saw Sex Pistols for the first time as a 12-year-old?
It blew my mind, dude.
I don't even think I went to a concert until I was 13.
And I didn't pay well, keep in mind, I went to concerts with my cousin Jeff. Like we went to the Rush YYZ concert or Exit Stage Left concert, excuse me, and shit like that. So you go from Rush to the Sex Pistols.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't, you know, everybody, oh, Sid Vicious. No, man. Johnny Lydon was the man. You know, Johnny Lydon was the one up there. And that's why I still listen to PIL afterwards, because the man was awesome. He knew what he was doing. He had talent. He's never been different. He never changed with the times. He's always truthful. He always tells it like it is.
That's pretty awesome.
And he is just who he is.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. See, Kilted knows what I'm talking about, aka he knows a guy. You hand these out, you bring us 100 people, and we pay you X amount of money or whatever they were going to give them. You know, it didn't matter, because the punk community wasn't about the cash. There was ways to get favors, drugs, whatever. You did stuff, and people did stuff for you. It was different. Yeah. It was really like a family.
And you all knew each other. You all knew each other's faces, and you talked. And
in the beginning, you did.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple questions. I guess we could go to some questions, but I want to do the overview of your music when you were younger. But we could do this.
No, I never saw Guns N' Roses. I used to poo-poo that shit. Wasp, Guns N' Roses, Warrant, all that. I used to make fun of that crap. I never saw that stuff. Megadeth was the only band I ended up listening to that was metal, which is really funny because now I will listen to Stryper because they're Christian metal. I didn't know it back at the time. I poo-pooed them, you know?
Well, now it's for me, it's just 20th century music my brain is open to, and I can hear it way better than when I was around, and I was, when you're younger, no, this is way better than that, and all these big opinions.
Yeah.
So you started off. Let's do the summary here. You got your mind blown away by Sex Pistols. You entered the early LA punk scene. You were there for a short amount of time when it was cool, and then it got dark with the different gangs. You got out. You met this girl Kelly who helped you get out of that, and you started hanging out with Rodney Bingenheimer and all this other like alternative music before it was called alternative music, like
Yeah.
X and all that. You got involved with that, and then you eventually got out of that, and then you met Dave Mustaine. So that all that stuff is pretty dang awesome. Is there anything else you want to add? I mean, there's so many bands that you've seen at that time and met interesting people you met. But is there anything you want to do just to sum it up, or
Well, you know, I had a blessed life. There were about 10 times over I should have been dead, and I wasn't. Um, I was a stupid young punk. That's the easiest way to say it. And I don't mean punk rocker. I mean just a stupid young punk.
Yeah.
And I did have a lot of experiences, some good, most bad, but it's a learning and growing experience. And I'm glad I went through it because it made me the person I am now.
Yeah.
And I've become a good provider, a good husband, a good father. And I don't think if I didn't go through all the stuff and do all the stupid crap I did, that I'd be who I am today. We might not even be friends or talking, who knows what I'd be or where I'd be or who I'd be.
We're talking over 40 years ago, these things that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, because I never thought living in that lifestyle and doing the stuff we did, I didn't think I'd make it to live to be 35. Thank you, Matt, man. I didn't think I'd make it to be 35. And here I am, almost 60, just a week away from 60.
Yeah. Happy birthday, my man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, people look at it in awe, and I'm like, it's nothing to be about.
You
These
just happened to be there as a kid.
I was just in the right place at the right time, dating the right hot chick. That's it. That's it. Otherwise, I would have not met anybody in the scene. I would have just been going to gigs and probably be dead in the gutter somewhere,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just was a trip, It just was a trip. And I actually preferred a lot of the post-punk music to the punk. Circle Jerks will always have a special place in my heart because their songs about Beverly Hills and Century City and just they really got political and showing all the bullshit about life that they were pushing to make important on people in the 80s. Thank you.
And they had an incredible drummer too that really knew what he was doing there and brought kind of a little more swing to it, from what I understand with Circle Jerks.
Honestly, staying sober, Jeff, was really easy. A big help was moving out to the Inland Empire in California. Okay, so I got away from a lot of those people.
Great movie, by the way.
And then when I cut off my brother, that was another big thing because I had to cut off my brother over my wife, and he was trying to bang one of my wife's friends at college because I met Rachel and she was going to college at the time, and working at Walmart with my brother, which is because my brother worked at the one of those big 24-hour Walmarts, and he was a manager, and so there was that. And he basically told me, you're going to have to pick between her or me. I'm like, dude, you're family, but you can't be doing that. She's my wife. She gave me a kid.
Hey, Dan's here. Right on, buddy.
Yep. Yeah. I still listen to their two albums that I like the most, you know, which was Group Sex and Wild in the Streets. Those were my two favorite albums they did. I still like the Stiff Little Fingers.
Always remember Suspect Device. I still think
Yep.
that's an awesome song.
Roots, the radicals, the rock to the reggae, the roots. Yep. And you know, there's still stuff I will listen to, but not the stuff that became evil and dark.
Yeah.
And I just can't. Because it just I hear it for a minute and it's so dark. I'm like, oh, that's gotta go. Ugh. You know. But and it's funny when I heard that Red Scare song on Rodney Bingenheimer's album, it just reminded me of the Anti-Club riot. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to hear that anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And then, like, when I heard the Germs Amoeba, that always reminds me of him ODing, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I can't do that. There was so much, like I said, there was good stuff, but there was so much bad in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the band Flipper. I remember them. And Television, but Television was more of an experimental band like the Velvet Underground and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's more my speed, that Marquee Moon and all that.
Yeah, I dug Television, and I got into the garage bands. I mean, if you listen to the 3 o'clock, and I'm serious, you guys can use YouTube search and type in 3 o'clock, and they got big. They were on David Letterman and all this stuff, and they used to play the Whiskey and all that. Totally different from the stuff I listened to, you know, totally different. They were garage psychedelic. And the same thing like with the Go-Go's. Go-Go's started off as a poppy surf punk band.
Yeah,
you know?
I should go look for their earlier recordings. I still love their hits. I think they're
Yeah, like the Bangles. I'm serious. Hunt down the Bangles EP. It is on here on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they were totally psychedelic garage before Prince started sleeping with the lead singer and started writing all their music for him to get him big, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that was Prince's thing. He didn't care. Oh, you're hot? Here, I'll write some music
So
for
he
you.
got with Sinead, do you think? Sinead.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he wrote Nothing Compares to You
from Sandman Mystery Comics.
You know, he wrote that song for her.
Yeah,
and that
Go-Go's, that would be an awesome. Bangles, all that early stuff, you know.
Yeah.
There's more too that later made it into the wave scene. But.
See, Dan knows what I'm talking about with the 3 o'clock. Yeah, they brought the Paisley psychedelics back, man. There were tons of other bands, but for some reason Rodney picked them and made them big.
Yeah.
Hey, Jean Malo.
Hey, Jean, what's up, man? I'm going to interview him someday too.
I really, honestly, Matt, I preferred them when they wore the A-line 60s dresses and they were doing the psychedelic stuff than what they became with that walk like an Egyptian. Oh, God.
I still like that song, though, man. I do. You know?
I don't. And then they ran out of shit to do, so they had to redo some freaking, you know, Simon and Garfunkel shit, Hazy Shade of Winter and all that. Yeah. I'm like, no, honey, you've fallen so far. Oh, she broke up the band. She became her own Yoko, man.
Well, I know, I know you kind of not into No Doubt, but look at Gwen Stefani now. It's like, what happened? You know,
I never liked her. Bradley did. Bradley was cool with all them because they were part of that same scene, you know?
Yeah. Well, should we wrap it up soon? Do you think, or
I'm up. It's up to you, brother. Whatever you want to do.
does anyone have any questions about any of the early LA punk scene from the late '70s and early '80s? So we'll go for a couple minutes here, see if anyone has any questions. But
Yep,
then,
I will take questions and answer them if I can. All right. Thanks for stopping by, Super Red Batman.
yeah. Well, cool, man. I want to thank everyone for being here. Every Friday at 2 p.m., I'm going to be interviewing friends and acquaintances. It's the show is going to be called Music Memories of the 20th Century. And I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a casual conversation like this. You don't necessarily have to be a musician. If you are, that's fine.
And
Or
trust me, I'm not a musician. I just had entertaining stories. And yes, that is the first EP that was epic. They really had that garage sound, man. They really rock, dude. And I miss that. I miss EPs. You know, you just get a 4-song record. It was cheap to make. That's how Missing Persons got big. They did a 4-song EP. That was it. 2 songs
yeah.
on one side, 2 songs on the other. Ah, so many cool bands came out then.
Well, you saw Jane's Addiction at when they were jamming before.
Yeah, it was before they did their first album. I saw them, dude.
So you saw Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, Fishbone,
And
in the
Fishbone,
same
yeah.
house where they would go to jam, and
Yeah.
Rodney Bingenheimer would go there and say hi and bring you guys.
Yeah, and it wasn't just them that went there. A lot of bands used that house, but those are the only 3 I remember.
Right.
Okay. And it was funny because like a lot of those guys, like Andy and the guys from Red Hots, they lived up in Hollywood, which was maybe a half a mile walk from where I am. So they could pile in a van and drive there, you know?
Yeah.
Jane's Addiction, like Perry Farrell, he lived on Mariposa in a really seedy apartment building because there were a whole bunch of them there. It was a walk for him to get to that place, you know? So, yeah. I mean, that's why that was an easy place. Yeah. And they were so talented, man, doing that stuff. But I only saw them that one time with Rodney. If I wasn't with Rodney, me and Kelly wouldn't have got in. You know, bottom line. Me and Kelly would not have gotten in to see him because, like I told you guys before, they had 2 massive guys just sitting. Like there were steps that led up to them, and then there were places coming out like where there normally would be lion statues. Instead, they had 2 big guys sitting on there. Like, you're getting in because you're with him. You know, I'm like, okay,
Right.
I'm just happy to be part of the show, man. You know, it was like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, like I said, I'm going to have music memories every Friday that I could do it. People on Facebook who I've never really met, but we interacted. I know we have a lot in common musically. I'm going to interview Brian Funk, music production club guy there who really influenced me. I'm going to, I think Kevin, Random Reads. So there's a lot of people who are going to, I'm going to interview once a week. So, and I'll probably have a rotating cast. If someone cancels, I could probably grab one of my friends and start talking about stuff. But
yeah, it'll be fun, man. I'm glad you started doing this, you know.
Yeah, I'm totally into it. So all right, you guys, until next week, deuces.
God bless
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you
Love
for
ya.
showing up, you guys. The chat rocks. See you on the
you
next
later.
one.